And welcome to another edition of Spits and Suds. We have a lot of information to talk about today. A lot of Stars news happening. Super excited. Robert Tiffin of starsthoughts.com will join us in just a second. We are proudly presented by the On Time Experts. I was speaking to Matt, the GM of the On Time Experts, and I was talking about all the great things they offer. And he was saying, that's what we want to do, Gavin. We want to be a part of the DFW community. So they're definitely a part of the DFW hockey community, because if you are at the AAC watching a Stars game, in between periods, you see that bright orange Zamboni come out. It's sponsored by the On Time Experts. They are the official HVAC company of the Dallas Stars, as well as Spits and Suds. Same day service guaranteed. The holidays are coming, and we all know later this week, the weather is going to turn. It won't be too bad. We're going to get some rain and cooler temperatures. So the question is, with Thanksgiving and the holidays in December, is your HVAC system working the way it should? It's worth the $59 to get that satisfaction and to make sure that your system is optimized. How do you do that? You just go online, ontimeexperts.com. It's a simple process. Took me only a minute or two to sign up for my appointment. Not only did they show up in the window that they gave me, they showed up early. They are awesome. It's the On Time Experts. You know who else is awesome? Robert Tiffin of starsthoughts.com. How are you, sir?
Doing well, Gavin. Doing well. It's been a fun week for me personally when it comes to hockey. So it's
I'm super excited to get into that. I am super excited to get into that. I was like, okay, should I talk about some of those things that I want to talk to Robert about? But then all of a sudden, I would say pretty much a kind of a Stars bombshell in that Matt Duchene, undisclosed injury, has been placed on LTIR retroactive to October 18th. Adam Ernie, lower body injury, has been placed on long-term injured reserve retroactive to November 11th. So take us through this, Robert, and what this means for the Stars as far as, and I guess the other question is the possibility of Ilya Lyubushkin or maybe another name we might see tomorrow night against the Islanders.
Yeah. All we know is that Ilya Lyubushkin is dealing with something. He wasn't at practice yesterday morning, and Golitson said it could end up being a maintenance day. They'll see how he is. They were going to get more information today, but the Stars have an off day. So Tuesday morning is the first time we'll really hear from them again about Lyubushkin's status. But certainly there's a possibility. He said Lyubushkin, they had to go get some more, I think, testing done or something to that effect. And we'll know more Tuesday morning, which means the Stars only had 5 healthy defensemen at practice yesterday. So obviously they need a 6th defenseman. So if Lyubushkin can't go, they need space. So the way you get that space is, there's a couple ways. You can either send players back down to AHL, or you can put players on long-term injured reserve. Right now, the Stars have Jamie Benn on long-term injured reserve, as we know. And in fact, him being there basically since the beginning of the season was one of the ways that players like Adam Ernie were able to be added, who they actually both have the same cap hit, although Ben has some additional performance bonuses that he's likely to earn this year. But with Adam Ernie being placed in LTIR as well, that his and Ben's cap hit kind of cancel each other out. So in theory, they could have just put Adam Ernie on LTIR in preparation for activating Jamie Benn, which now seems pretty likely based on what they've said. And these moves make it even more likely that Jamie Benn will probably be activated ahead of Tuesday's game against the Islanders. But putting Matt Duchene on LTIR is interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, because it creates a lot of extra space temporarily. Again, when a player comes back off LTIR, then you have to create that space for them again. So it's not like, in years past, with the playoffs and everything where you can LTIR a player, then bring them back. But if it's at the playoffs when they come back, like it was for Miro Heiskanen last year, then you just kind of have that bonus. Doesn't work that way. So the Stars in theory could have just only put Adam Ernie on LTIR, activated Jamie Benn tomorrow, again, which we assume they're going to do, but we don't know that for sure. Just being careful here. And then they could have, for example, called up Vladislav Kolyachonok, the young defenseman they got from Pittsburgh in trade for Matt Dumba over the summer. They could have called him up. They did have just barely enough cap space to do that without putting Matt Duchene on LTIR. However, they have put Matt Duchene in LTIR. So why exactly they might be doing that, we're not sure. It could just be because they want to add, maybe 2 players before they have a big road trip coming up, a really big one. So it makes sense that they might want some extra bodies, but who those extra bodies are going to be and who they might need to be filling in for is still something we're not totally positive about, but it does give them a little bit more flexibility.
And just to be clear, you've been at the forefront, because when you see Matt Duchene, you think he's going to come back, and then he doesn't come back. And now the LTIR, someone brought up around the office, for example, today, this reminds me of Stephen Johns. And I mean, I can understand it as far as like thinking the player's going to come back, but doesn't come back. Sidney Crosby would be another example, but those were concussion. And you've been at the forefront as far as saying like this injury is not concussion based.
As far as we know,
yes.
And again, I want to be really careful, because speculating about anything like this, is something, I just think it's important to be responsible about it and say what we're basing these things on, right, and being really upfront. What we know about Duchene is that he practiced, for instance, yesterday. He was out there practicing with the team, doing some drills, not necessarily every drill. And again, obviously, since he's apparently not coming right into the lineup tomorrow, it makes sense that he wouldn't necessarily be, skating on regular lines and everything. But he's still been, I've seen him, working out with the team fairly regularly. This was the first time I'd seen him in about 2 weeks working out with the team. So, it's possible. All we had kind of heard is that he was getting some treatment and things like that. But what exactly that treatment was for, and the Stars even said undisclosed today when they put him on LTIR. So they didn't even use upper or lower body. They just said undisclosed. But seeing him even coming off the ice and, getting his gear off in the dressing room and everything yesterday, it's Matt Duchene. So I'm hesitant to put up any big giant red flags. And even with them putting Duchene on LTIR, something to keep in mind is that they did it retroactive to his most recent game, which was in mid-October. So that means that Duchene, because it's retroactive to 4 weeks ago, he's already met the minimum 10 games and 24 calendar days minimum for LTIR. So they could still activate Duchene as soon as he's ready to go, even if that's later this week. We'll find out tomorrow if he's going to be traveling with the team. I think that'll be really telling to know if he's going to be traveling on this road trip. He hasn't been on some of their recent road trips. For instance, he wasn't on the road trip to Canada, whereas Jamie Benn was. So Duchene, this in a weird way doesn't actually necessarily extend how long Duchene's going to be out. It might just be a move that gives them some short-term flexibility, just in case they need to add multiple players. They have that ability to do it. And then as soon as Duchene's ready to go, they can, reassign players or do what they need to do to create that space back. But of course, we don't know when that'll be.
Right. I said on the podcast the other day, after every game, specifically if they lose, there's going to be some criticism. But at this point, I don't know how you can criticize this team for what they're doing and for the injuries that they're facing, for the man hours down. And these aren't just like, these are Jamie Benn, the captain of the team, Matt Duchene, a top 2-line center. You had Lundqvist, who's a second-line defenseman. Now Lyubushkin. Ernie was playing valuable minutes. So these are really high-quality players. And the fact that this team is doing what they're doing without all these pieces and somehow patchworking it together, and then defensively for what they've put up the last couple of games, it's just really, really impressive.
Yeah, they're only healthy right-handed defenseman unless Lyubushkin ends up being healthy. Their only right-handed defenseman right now is Alex Petrovic, who spent most of the last 2 years in the AHL. So for them to have this group and for Harley to have been playing through something, and I actually thought he started looking pretty good the other night.
I did too, yeah.
Which is unfortunate for him. Who we don't know exactly what he was playing through, but they've clearly decided, from what Golitzin said, to give him time to take care of it now. However, that's being taken care of. We don't know what type of treatment is being done, or if it's just rest or what. But like you said, them having, what are they, second or third in the NHL right now?
Yeah.
After dealing with all of those things, let alone not having their captain and lose their entire second defense. Harley and Lundqvist were their second defense pairing to start the
Yep.
year. Then they lose Lundqvist and they elevate Lyubushkin, who had been healthy scratch for a couple games earlier in the season. Okay, now you're going to be on the second defense pair, and then they lose Harley, and now they might lose Lyubushkin for a little bit. So again, everyone's having to play up. Same thing with the forwards, right? Justin Ritzkovian, he's been their third line center, and that I do not think that was the plan necessarily going into the year. Especially with Matt Duchene, Wyatt Johnson, and Rope Hintz on the roster, but instead you bring this player up who had four career NHL games last year, and he's been, I think that line with him and Oscar Beck, and Maverick Bourque has actually been looking pretty good the last few games, like really, really good the last few games. So they've definitely been getting a lot of players playing maybe a slot above where they would ideally be, but actually, holding things, not only holding the fort, but they're on a 5-game winning streak, and 12 out of 13 games they've had points in. So you literally could not ask for more, like you said, than they've done so far.
Okay, Robert, you're going to be the deciding factor. I did call Jason Robertson a streaky goal scorer. And streaky, you tweeted it out the other day, and I'm like, is Robert talking about me by saying that? I'm not saying it in a bad way. I'm just saying, like, goal scorers are streaky at times. And it's one of those things, like, streaky right now is good. Like, I want Jason Robertson to be streaky right now. It's just that sometimes there are, and it's not from lack of effort or anything like that. And he puts up his points when you look at the year end, and that's why he's so valuable. But there are times when Jason Robertson has not necessarily, like I said, it's not effort based, but there are lulls as far as, goals. And he, the puck wasn't going in. That's not an indictment on Jason Robertson. It's just, that's what makes him a streak. I think Brett Hull would be called a streaky goal scorer.
Oh yeah. I think that's very fair. I mean, I think the Brett Hull comparison to Jason Robertson, I think there's a lot of truth there in multiple ways. And I mean, teams need a player like that. If you're gonna win a championship, you kind of need to have that player who has that ability to score goals almost out of nothing sometimes. And I remember I was talking with Jason Robertson. I think it was the day after he scored a shootout goal against Edmonton. When they beat the Oilers in a shootout, probably about 2 weeks back now, and was basically asking him the same thing. I mean, of course, he knows all these things. Robertson always knows where his numbers are and everything. He knows what the data say. He knows where his chances are, and he's been very clear, and Goldson has too, that he knows that a lot of things have been going right, and the goals just haven't come. But everything else that's within his control, he's been pretty adamant. I feel good about where those things are. Yes, it's frustrating when I don't score, of course, but those really are, I really do believe those things are going to come, and I'm just trying to keep doing what I do. And to his credit, he didn't get down on himself or start trying to change things or mix things up too much or something like that. He just kept doing it. And then once he got that one, and I remember saying this, I'm sure a million people said this to him too. Yeah. Said, in fairness, in your career, it tends to be when you get one. And I mentioned last year too, when you get that one or two, they tend to come in buckets. And sure enough, 6 goals in 3 games. That's and first star of the week in the entire NHL. I mean, that pretty much says it all right there.
Right. Now, I mean, we remember the Dirk fadeaway and how that was so tough to stop. It's early, but I really think Jason Robertson developed that nice turnaround shot. I mean, his shot is so accurate. Yeah. And I was trying to explain it the other day, similar to a backhand coming off the tape. It's very hard when you're turning around for the goalie to pick up the puck. Right. And I just think it's a great shot, and it seems like he's very comfortable doing it. Yeah,
he had that the longer distance one the other day that was really impressive. And then he had maybe it was his second one against the Canadians, I think might have been. But then he had that one where he just came out from in front of the net the other night against Philadelphia and just beat the goalie high glove. And it's one of those where, some of the long range ones he even admitted, some of that's just you're trying to get it on net because you're turning around and just firing, especially further away through traffic. But I think that one in close against Philly where he came out from behind the net and just whipped it past, I think it was Dan Vladar's glove hand. That is a goal scorer who has done that and practiced that more times than anyone can fathom. And it's almost just executing a program, basically. I'm just going to do this, run this .exe file, and boom, this is usually what happens. Yep. Okay. Everything's working fine now.
Were you guys talking up in the media center when he scored that hat trick about I mean, it was a very, very smart play, if it's not called, as far as getting rid of that stick from Couturier with that little, no look slap of the stick. I mean, I was looking it up because I'm fascinated. I'm like, okay, there was one hand. Couturier had one hand on it, but he was holding his stick, and it wasn't a chop down. It was more of a sweep. But I think by definition, that could have been called interference or slashing. But it was so subtle, and the way he did it, no look, it was just a very smart goal scorer's play.
Yeah. And if you look like I think smart is the perfect word for it.
Very smart.
And really, I mean, Jason Robertson is a player. That's a word I think should be applied to him as much as any player in the league. Usually smart gets applied to like low scoring players. They're so smart to make a career for themselves. You have to be pretty darn smart and gifted to score as many goals as he does too.
Yes.
The way he scores goals, he knows what he's looking for. He knows what spots he's looking to shoot for. I mean, look at his shootout. If you want to think about how smart he is, this is a player who has... I mean, he's one of maybe the second best shootout taker in the entire league right now, maybe behind Trevor Zegras. I mean, he's just incredible at doing what he does and finding those spaces. So it wouldn't shock me at all if that's a play where he knows, okay, if I keep my stick at this angle and I'm not really overtly looking at it, then I can probably get away with a play that may or may not get rid of that stick, as opposed to something more vehement or whatever that's going to draw a call. Yeah,
on the shootout, that nonchalant way he goes down the ice, it's. Mm-hmm. If he was missing it every time, I know fans would be like, he doesn't care. See, he's not even, because it looks like he's just like, yeah, whatever. But I really do think that freezes the goalie in many ways too. He's just a very smart player, how he finds space. Mm-hmm. You look at those goals the other night, in that bumper position, that was just a great position for him. That was great positioning to be in. And by the way, I love how the Stars are using that bumper position. I mean, Wyatt Johnston thrives in that position straight up the middle, but I am seeing probably more than in the past. I'd have to look it up in analytics, Robert, but it just seems as though the Stars are really, they enjoy shooting like right on the goalie as opposed to, from the side, specifically on the power play. It looks like they're really trying to find that middle.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, they're not wasting shots from the perimeter or the point almost at all. They're very much looking for those premium chances. And I mean, you look at their power play conversion, it's what, 30, 31, 32 or something. It's something crazy. Glenn Goldson, Neil Graham, arrive in Dallas, and all of a sudden it's like I think they have a power play goal in, is it 6 straight or 8 straight, something like that?
8 straight games. We were looking it up the other day. They're almost 50% of what they were last year in power play goals.
Yep.
It's hard to believe. It's amazing.
It's one thing when you get hot and then some shots just kind of start going in, right? Maybe some point shots or some one-timers through traffic, or you getting those rebounds or fall into the right players in the right spaces. But the goals they're scoring are almost universally looks they are trying to create specifically, like by design. And that's how you know a power play is really dangerous. And like you mentioned too, it hasn't always been, it's just Wyatt Johnston right there. Like you've seen Jason Robertson against Ottawa. Yep. You saw a little rotation up high with him coming behind, even, whether it's Rantanen or someone else up there, getting the puck kind of passed off for him so he could come downhill and shoot. And that's one of the ways that rotation can work in the power play. But they have other rotations they can do in different spots. And those, tic-tac-toe type of passes or triangle passing, as you'll hear Josh Bograd talk about in the broadcast, that just all you need is one of the penalty killers to be leaning the wrong way. And if you know how to exploit that and they execute it, it's extremely difficult to stop without overcorrecting or double teaming something. And then that opens up space somewhere else. So I'm sure we'll see some dip at some point in the season. Hard as that is to believe right now, just because, teams scout too well not to eventually start to change things up. But for right now, it's been really, really impressive how well the power play has been clicking. And now that Jason Robertson's scoring, it's almost scary to think how much better it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, everyone, starsthoughts.com. You get all Stars info, what's happening in Stars land, including last night, the Hall of Fame ceremonies, Joe Nieuwendyk, as well as Ralph Strangis being inducted. I mean, kudos to the Dallas Stars and the people involved, Brad Alberts, for starting this. I think Joe Nieuwendyk put it best. He goes, not all teams do this. He goes, this is really special. And for a guy like Joe Nieuwendyk, who was general manager and it didn't necessarily end well, to have him come back and be celebrated, I think that's absolutely wonderful, because years back when I first started this podcast, I thought to myself, I really felt as though they needed to celebrate the 99, 2000 team more, or the people that really were important as far as the growth of this franchise. And I think indirectly, the Dallas Stars Hall of Fame is certainly bringing that notoriety to many of these players.
It's such a cool thing to do. It's cool for people who get to be in attendance, who buy a ticket and get to sit at a table, usually with a player or two, and then see all these people around. It's cool on that level, certainly, just the experience of it, because you can look around and see, oh, there's Yeri Lettinen, Ed Belfour, there's Sergei Zubov, right? There's some guy named Craig Ludwig, right? There's these guys, Bob Basson, right?
Yeah.
And then you can look over and there's Jason Robertson, there's Wyatt Johnston, and there's Jamie Benn, there's Tyler Seguin, and there's Jim Lights, there's Bob Gainey, right? People who, and not to mention, Jim Nill, all the Stars brass, all the coaches, Goldson, all the coaches are there. It's a night that means a lot and says a lot about the organization and how much they want to keep all these things in perspective, which is a tough thing to do, right? When Tom Glardy came in, Ralph Strangis even alluded to this in his speech last night, that he and Glardy both kind of, especially when Glardy first came in, it was pretty clear the rebrand of the jerseys and everything, they didn't want to cling to the past too much. They wanted to look forward and say, hey, let's create something new and all our own. We don't need to keep hanging on to the past. We're better than that. But now they've gotten to a point where I think they're confident enough to be able to honor and recognize those achievements from the past, and they have been too. It's not like they didn't want to do that before. It's Tom Glardy probably deserves as much credit as anyone for the fact that they do these Hall of Fame events that they've done for the past 4 years now. But being able to see all those players from even the Minnesota days, right? And then all the way up to the present, someone like Justin Ritzkovian being up there and getting to stand on the stage with Joe Nieuwendyk and Mikko Rantanen and all these other people after you've heard all these stories and seen all these faces, and you could see, I mean, it was really emotional. Both, I mean, Ralph Strangis definitely was a bit tearful a few times, both during his speech and when others were talking about him. And Nieuwendyk himself said Jamie Langenbrunner was the one who introduced Nieuwendyk last night, and when Nieuwendyk came up, he said, "Boy, it's been tough because I was in tears before listening to those guys, and now you're putting me in tears as I'm getting up to make my speech." He said to Langenbrunner. So it really does mean a lot. And again, Nieuwendyk's a player who he won a cup in Calgary. Long before he got to Dallas. He was an excellent player in the league before he got to Dallas, and he won a cup with New Jersey after he was traded out of Dallas too. So this isn't a player whose whole career was just localized around Dallas. This is a player who accomplished a lot in his career, but this still means a lot to him. And I just thought it's really, really cool to hear the stories that you got to hear last night. Ralph Strangis told all sorts of stories, as you would expect, and had all sorts of comments. Because it's just that sort of night where there's a different feel to everything. There's a little bit more of a, I don't know if brotherhood sounds too like cliche kind of, but there's very much, it's a fraternity, and you feel that
absolutely
we're all part of something big, and just getting to watch that kind of tells you something about how connected this franchise really wants all those different eras to be.
Yeah. And stick tap to Josh Bogarot the other night too. Having a conversation with Ralph and Razor, and then Josh just, stepping to the side and allowing Ralph and Razor, like that was special. And that was cool to a lot of Stars fans. I started getting texts on it. So that was really good. And, everyone was listening. So that's also, and I said, you got to remember Josh Bogarot too in this mix. Like he's very, very nice about just saying, boys, this is your forum. And I think that was really, really cool. And I'm happy for Ralph. I mean, it was almost like a welcome home, Ralph, as far as to the organization celebrating. I mean, you had a great point as far as, going out there for the puck drop and wearing number 71, which I thought was fascinating. And I started to think, why is he wearing number 71? And you had the answer.
Yeah. Ralph had mentioned that, he and Antonio Strangis, who plays for the Texas Stars, their names are similar, although Strangis spells it with an E, and Ralph spells his, of course, IS at the end. But he had gotten that jersey autographed by Antonio Stranges, and then he signed it as well. And they auctioned it off last night for the Dallas Stars Foundation, along with a custom-made bolo tie that he had last night with like emeralds and diamonds and gold on it and stuff. Really cool. Auctioned it off for some thousands of dollars. I can't remember what it ended at, but it was, a lot of money raised for the charitable work the Dallas Stars Foundation does. So that's just something that Ralph wanted to do. He even told the story last night in his speech about a lesson he learned when he was young, that those who can should. Basically, if you have the means, then you ought to, be doing good things with it, helping others with it. So there was a lot. Both it's funny because Jim Lights last year, his speech at this event last year when Jim Lights was inducted went for I think over half an hour. It was a pretty long one, and Ralph kind of joked about that this year, but he nearly reached half an hour as well. And then Nieuwendyk joked about it as well, that okay, well, I'm going to try not to set the Jim Lights record, but Nieuwendyk ended up going pretty long too. The two cool things really quick about those two there were a lot of cool things about it. One really cool moment towards the end, Ralph spoke for quite a while, and then Daryl Razor comes up after he finishes. It says, Ralph, I wouldn't have expected anything less from my old play-by-play partner. Going as long as you did. It was something to the effect of, I would have been disappointed if you didn't go that long. Basically, they laughed, and then just a moment later, Ralph comes back up onto the stage. And they give each other a big hug after that. Just kind of
that's great.
Like you mentioned, the moment during the broadcast the other night, hearing them calling a game together and hearing kind of that banter, and those moments last night of them giving each other, a little bit of guff back and forth, in a friendly sort of way, was, I think, that was just speaking frankly, as fans, it was probably tough seeing Ralph leave when he did, because it felt fairly abrupt, because they'd actually announced an extension for him, I think just like a year prior. So when he left in 2015, being as long tenured as he was, it just kind of felt abrupt for fans. And that was kind of tough in some ways. And of course, Dave Strader, who's fantastic, was brought in until he sadly passed away from cancer. And then Razor stepped in along with Craig Ludwig, of course, to kind of hold the fort for a couple of years. And then of course, Josh Bogorad, who, I'm as big a fan of Josh Bogorad.
He's great
as there is. I could talk, but I try not to all the time. But he's just fantastic, and so Stars fans have definitely been spoiled in a lot of ways. But that moment last night, there was something about seeing, and during the game, seeing Ralph and Razor and hearing Ralph and Razor doing their thing again, that just kind of felt right. It was a really sweet bookend, of on Ralph's career with the Stars as he finally finishes up and goes into the Dallas Stars Hall of Fame.
And I'm kind of a numbers nerd, so I thought it was pretty interesting. 25 years of Stranges in the booth, and Nieuwendyk wore number 25. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. The one moment from Nieuwendyk, he told lots of stories too. I loved him talking about Bob Basson, who I think is now to the one
alumni
of the
director.
Heads of the alumni director. For the Dallas Stars. And he talked about how in 1998, when Brian Marchment hit Nieuwendyk and ended his season, messed up his knee. He said Bob Basson, he in 99 to 2000, I think the final 2 years of Basson's career, he played for, Calgary and St. Louis, I think. And Nieuwendyk said last night, I think Basson spent most of those final 2 years chasing around Marchment, trying to get him to fight him every time those teams met in the Western Conference. So it was cool to hear a story and about how Nieuwendyk remembers little things like that.
Yeah.
That was 25 years ago. It wasn't even happening on the Stars, on his team anymore, but he knew that Basson was still doing that because that meant something to him, right? That he wanted to stick up for Nieuwendyk. And Langenbrunner said last night that Joe Nieuwendyk was the best teammate I've ever had, and he is not the only player that you'll hear say that either.
Right.
Nieuwendyk is a very, very well-respected player, and that was a really cool thing last night to hear him talk as much as he did, because normally Nieuwendyk is great at being very, short and professional with his answers and not kind of rambling or anything like that. But last night, you could tell it meant a lot to him. And the way he ended his talk last night, Nieuwendyk did, was really, really special because, Jamie Benn was in attendance, and of course he's been out all season. And Nieuwendyk talks about him winning his first Stanley Cup, and I think it was 89 against the Calgary, or with the Calgary Flames, against the Montreal Canadiens. And he talks about how much that meant as a 22-year-old. And he said, Tyler Seguin, I think, can relate to this. You win that first cup early, but then as you get older, it changes a little bit. But he said winning that cup when he was young meant a lot for them because they were able to win the first career cup and last for Lanny McDonald. For NHL Hall of Famer Lanny McDonald, with of course the big famous mustache and everything.
Love it.
And there are famous pictures of Lanny McDonald just tearfully like grabbing the Stanley Cup like it's his child or something, because it meant so much in his final year to finally have climbed that mountain. And their motto was, "Let's win this one for Lanny." That's what Nieuwendyk was saying last night. Then he pivots, and boy, you could hear a pin drop. And he says, "So then I did some more Google searching, and I looked up the age of my old friend Jamie Benn." He said, "Chubbs, how old are you?" And he calls out to Ben over at the table. And you heard Ben call back, because he obviously can tell where this is going. Ben said, 36. He's like, "That's the same age as that old goat Lanny McDonald was."
No,
when he won
nice.
the Stanley Cup for him. And he said basically, well, of course, Jamie Benn, you've still got those GQ good looks and everything. And Lanny really was old. But after that kind of laugh, he then got serious for a minute, said basically, "Guys, all you players who are here, I know, you don't necessarily love the idea, all of you being, on an off night or something, listen to old guys talk about the glory days. Maybe it's not your favorite thing, but I think maybe this year, what if your motto was, let's win this one for Jamie? Let's win it for him." And I have to think that message did not go unheard by all the players in the room. As much as they all know that, right? Players are dumb. Right. They know that. Hearing that from someone like Joe Nieuwendyk, I have to think that means something, especially if you're 22 years old, like Wyatt Johnston, right? So,
well,
it was a cool
absolutely.
moment, really cool moment.
I think there were certain things over the years that hockey probably more than any other sports, and I'll give 2 Stars examples against Montreal the other night when third period was getting real chippy. Lyubushkin kind of ended all the chippiness with a fight. And didn't necessarily need to do that. And, it was a headlock, but at the same time, that slowed things down. And then Bichel, gets a penalty and Montreal wants to go after him. And it was Thomas Harley, banged up as he was, who kind of got in front of Bichel. I think that stuff resonates in the room, the boys sticking up for boys. And, that to me is, you can make fun of your brother, but no one else can. That kind of mentality. And it's like, we're in this together. On that note, because you have correctly talked about Joe Nieuwendyk so much, and I know the Stars are really, really tough on this. And I appreciate that in one sense. But I really feel as though 25 should go up in the rafters. It's been retired for Calgary and Cornell, and 7 years with the franchise. I think that's enough time personally, and what he meant to this franchise and how when he came here, that was that final piece. I would love to see that go up in the rafters.
It's an interesting question. And what I always come back to when people talk about this is, well, 2 things. First, Brendan Morrow, if your threshold is going to be, they were a big piece who won us a Stanley Cup, then you're talking about, Ed Belfour, Darian Hatcher, all the Brett Hull, right? All these players who were there, even if they weren't there for very long. Brendan Morrow, of course, his rookie year was the following year when they lost in the final to New Jersey. But he was here for longer, right? For what would have been, I think, 13 years with the franchise.
Yep.
So if you, at a certain point, if you start kind of saying, oh, this jersey has to go up, this jersey goes up, or this doesn't, it becomes kind of tricky, especially just given the players that you're talking about. And that's why I think it's such a good idea that they have the Dallas Stars Hall of Fame, because it's basically a way for them to honor those players and do these sorts of things in a way that doesn't kind of muddy up, that reserves the jersey retirement for franchise players, for players like Zubov and Lettinen Madonna, who spent almost all of their career with the team, who really did mean, I mean, all of those players, right, have pretty much like 15 years almost with the franchise. And it seems really clear when Brendan Morrow's number was given out again, I think was it Sean Horkoff, who might've gotten it like the next season?
Was Sean Horkoff. Good call.
Yeah, that was a pretty big sign, I thought, of how Tom Ghilardi was going to kind of handle it, that the bar was going to be really, really high to get jerseys up in the rafters. And I wonder if that was kind of part of his idea of, I don't want to always be saying, oh, anyone who's connected to the old days, we want to immediately kind of, put them up there and always hang on to the old days. We want that bar to be really, really high. We want to We want to be a franchise that looks forward and really thinks about what's it going to be like, 30 years from now. We want every jersey in the rafters to be a big, big story. And with all due respect to those other players like Mauro Newendijk, who deserve to be honored and remembered, and who will be now because they're in the Dallas Stars Hall of Fame, I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of have that delineation. And it's cool that they have this event for exactly that reason. So it's kind of a good middle ground, I think.
Okay, random here. Sean Horkoff's kid doing big things. Will Horkoff for University of Michigan. Boy, they're excited about him in Pittsburgh. So University of Michigan, and his teammate, if he stays next year, will be JP Hurlburt, Allen's own, who, by the way, Robert, great kid. Just a sensational kid. And full disclosure, pull back the curtain. Tanner Wilson, great follow on Twitter, just said, hey, check out JP Hurlburt. But Robert said, like, if any program needs to get JP Hurlburt on, it's your Spits and Suds program. So I delivered for you, buddy.
You sure did. You sure did. And it was every bit as good as you would expect.
Man, the kid was great. Okay, now on to the serious stuff. Robert went up to both Montreal and Ottawa, and I was like, man, I almost want to do a separate podcast called Robert's Travels because inevitably stuff happens. And so out of the blue, Robert starts tweeting about the Montreal hot dog. And I'm like, okay, now I'm fascinated. So tell me about the Montreal Canadiens hot dog and what makes it so good.
From a culinary perspective, I can speak firsthand now. One of the cool things about it is the bun, which is not a bun, but a piece of bread that has been toasted on a grill. Like you go up and you get it. They're basically made to order, and the piece of bread is toasted. Then the hot dog is put in there, and the bread is folded in half. And it's quality bread. It doesn't rip or anything. So it's a piece of bread folded around this hot dog. And the nature of the meat and everything too, it's just, oh man, it is. I'm not a big hot dog guy, just to be upfront, but this is just something else. You feel like you could eat about 20 of them. They're so good. Do you put
condiments on it, or it's so good?
I did mustard. I think if you're a relish person, you could do that. I kind of thought, let's try just a little bit of mustard. And sure enough, it was, the bread's a little sweet and everything too. Is just right. Just absolutely right. I think the meat in the hot dog is probably a little bit higher quality too, I'm guessing, or it's just really filled with delicious, unhealthy stuff. I don't know. It's a hot dog. So let's be clear about it. Or I think in Montreal, I think the French for it is chinchaud or something like that. CHIENCHAUD, if I have that right. But that's what they call them. And it's a long-standing tradition at Bell Center that visiting teams, that's their post-game meal, is those hot dogs. And it's been around for a long time. And sure enough, you saw it after the game with player, and you could tell they were enjoying them quite a bit. These are players whose usually their diet and their nutrition is really clearly prescribed, and they have pretty strict routine and regimen. But it's pretty cool to see, kind of an older time hockey tradition still alive and well in a place as old and traditional as Montreal. So that was a cool little moment. And of course I had to have one myself, and they were every bit as good as they look like they would be.
And did you drive from Ottawa to Montreal?
Yeah. So this is a trip where the best way to do it for me personally, because it'd be great if I had some outlet who got suckered into paying for me to travel and cover the team every game and stuff. But in the meantime, I get to be a little bit more creative in my travels. So actually my older brother was in town too. So we were able to kind of do this together and help to switch off driving and stuff like that too. And then he could just attend the game. And while I worked it, which was a lot of fun too, to hang out in Montreal with him. But flew into Vermont actually, and then rented a car, drove from there through Montreal actually before the Ottawa game on Monday, out to Ottawa for Tuesday's game, and then drove from there between Ottawa and Montreal. It's around 2 hours, maybe just a little bit more than that. So Wednesday morning drove from Ottawa to Montreal, and then was in Montreal for 2 days. So it was great. It was interesting to see the comparison between the two cities for people who haven't been. Ottawa's arena is in what used to be called the city of Canada. And now I think it's been technically incorporated into Ottawa, but it's a ways out there. To me, it felt a little bit like Grand Prairie kind of. Is Grand Prairie Dallas? Well, sort of, but it's not quite. And especially if there's traffic, it's going to take a little while to get from Dallas to Grand Prairie or vice versa. So there's a lot of people who have been saying for a while that Ottawa, really the ideal would be for them to have a downtown rink in actual Ottawa. I mean, it's the capital of the country, for crying out loud. So it would make a lot of sense. Now, I will say it also reminded me of Anaheim at Honda Center, whatever they call it now, the pond in Anaheim, that is also out in the suburbs a little bit. So in some ways, if you know what you're doing and you have a car, it can actually be pretty convenient to get in and out because it's not in the middle of a congested downtown and everything, like a place like Montreal. But the downside of that is just the feel. There's something about then you go to Montreal and a game night. I was there on a Thursday. I can only imagine what it's like on a Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, in Montreal, right? I'm sure that's just the height of hockey as a religion, basically, is going to a game like that. But just as you get closer and closer to the arena, all these people around, people are in shops and everything, bars on the way there, and just the anticipation and everything building as you get closer to this place. It really does seem like a religious experience for fans going to that game. And in some ways, honestly, games at the American Airlines Center feel a little bit like that too. Yes. You see a lot of fans riding the dart or whatever, getting there and walking towards the arena and the buzz building, getting to Victory Plaza and everything. It's a pretty cool thing. So I'm personally a really big fan of downtown arenas, and I agree. I think Bell Center is probably, at least so far of the ones I've been to, Bell Center has to be maybe the best one there is in a lot of ways.
I really thought the Shark Tank in San Jose was cool in that you start walking and you're with your buddy, and next thing you know, there are a couple other people, and about a half mile from the stadium or a quarter mile from the stadium, you were just surrounded by hockey fans and everyone's walking. And to me, that's a beautiful thing when, I agree with you, downtown arenas. And that's why, fingers crossed, that it stays, but I guess, I don't know, like Plano, can a Plano or whatever, we'll see. That's
I mean, if the Mavericks weren't doing what the Mavericks are doing, I think it would be a much more open question about the Stars staying downtown and everything. Right now, though, with the way the Mavericks are clearly pushing and trying to work with the city to do what they're doing, it's just harder to see the Stars staying there after 2031, which I think is a shame, because even having it as an option and something they could explore and try to find a way to make it work, whether or not it would end up or not, who knows? I just think that's, if you can, a downtown arena is always just that little bit extra cooler. One of my favorite things, I'll tell you this, in Montreal on Wednesday night. So the Stars practiced at Bell Center Wednesday afternoon, but on Wednesday night, my brother and I went out for dinner, and we're at this random place in what's called Quartier Latin, or, in French. A lot of things are in French there. The Latin Quarter, obviously. It's kind of like a, university, a little bit like Lower Greenville or something like that for Dallas folks. But we're at this place just eating dinner and everything, and people start to come in at one point, and I see a guy carrying a huge bag and holding 2 goalie pads in his hand, and they're clearly coming from their like beer league hockey game or whatever, and the whole team's coming to this restaurant and just throw the bag, throw the pads here, a couple sticks there, and everything. It's like a softball team right around here or something, but there it's hockey teams. So
I bet Mike Heika was excited because he wasn't the only one asking questions on the road.
Yeah, it's always, man, I will just say, for anyone out there who's thinking of getting into covering any sport, if you get a chance to cover it on the road, it's a very different experience and a really exceptionally cool one. Last year, covering a game in Detroit with, actually Sean was there too. So getting to cover a game with Sean in Detroit on the road, that was a really, really cool experience, especially at unfortunately at that time of the season and everything. Jamie Benn, they thought he'd scored his 400th goal, and then it turned out Liam Bichel touched it right before it went in, and that sort of thing. But there's something about covering games on the road, both kind of the experience of it and kind of just the nature of conversations and how much time people have, that's just different. And I always think that conversations are more likely to be a little bit more free and casual, and you just kind of get to know people in a different way on the road than you do when they're at home and they have a family at home they're looking to get back to as soon as practice is over.
Well, I would think the respect for the players and the coaches when they see you on the road, it's like, oh man, you're on this trip. That's cool. So
the investment, I think, is always worth it for anyone who's considering doing it or putting that work in. If you can invest in it and do it, then I think you should. And it makes me really happy too, having, readers and stuff of my work and listeners of this awesome program that you've created here being able to bring a few extra things for them and learn a bit more for them that I can relate to them, because that's kind of the job at the end of the day, is to tell stories to all the people who care about the team. So I really love getting the opportunity to learn that little bit more that I can pass along to them.
Well, we are on a run of Eastern Conference teams, and before we let you go, we'd be remiss to not talk about tomorrow night, and this is not your ordinary Islanders. Right now, they're on a heater on the road, and man, that Bo Horvat trade from Vancouver, which at first you're like, ooh, that's a lot. Paying off right now, 19 games, 23 points. And man, Matthew Schaefer, boy, this kid he reminds me a lot of PK Subban with his just energy from the defensive point, and then the ability as far as being a talker. And his personality for a rookie is just blossoming, and he's a lot of fun to watch. So he's a good one as well. Barzal, can't forget. I mean, he eats up a lot of ice time. They have veterans like Kyle Palmieri. Jonathan Drouin's having a real good year.
Yeah.
He was a guy that a lot of people thought, all right, the career might be, coming to an end. And then, of course, they got a pretty good 1-2 tandem, in net with Sorokin and Riddick. So this is a really good Islanders team. They're in the playoff mix right now. Stars have played really well against the East, Robert, but nice little test tomorrow night.
It will be. It definitely will be. I like that Subban Schaefer comparison. I think there might be something there. It's really cool to realize how young Schaefer is too. Like I saw the other day, people were talking about the Cale Makar comparison to him in a lot of ways, which makes sense, right? A mobile offensive defenseman who's scoring points and kind of controlling play the way he does when he's out there on the ice. I've watched a couple of Islanders games lately. But Schaefer's way younger than Makar was when he came into the league. Makar was almost 21, I think, when he made his debut in the NHL, and Schaefer's 18. So it's that much more impressive to me what Schaefer is doing. And given the team he's doing it for, it's cool to see. I think in a lot of ways the Stars might have their biggest challenge because, Philly's good, but they do not have the depth of other teams. So once the Stars kind of got Philly on their back foot, it felt a little easier for them to start pouring it on a bit. After kind of hanging in there for the second period for a little bit. Montreal, similarly, once the Stars were able to withstand that first period barrage, they were able to start piling up points and everything. But New York can burn you in a few different ways. Mm-hmm. So I think it's always hard when you're on a winning streak too, because as much as you want to stay sharp and keep everything going, Glenn Goldson said this the other day, that it's more important to coach when your team's winning, because that's when it can be easier to become a little, cocky and just, everything's working, so you don't need to focus too much. Yeah. And Goldson actually said the other day he's been having more individual meetings lately because now is the best time to have those one-on-one meetings with players too. I know you and Sean talked about some of those on Friday too, but Goldson said on Sunday that having those meetings just to help other players get that little bit better, they're more likely to be receptive right now because they aren't weighed down with all these, got to fix this or got to get this going or we got to break this losing streak. No, everything's going well. So they might even be that much more receptive, and it's easier for them to integrate those new bits of advice and slight little tweaks and stuff right now compared to if they're, we're just desperate trying to get a win, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Schaefer had the game winner the other night on a one-timer, and the post game, you can find it on Twitter/X. Cal Clutterbuck is part of the post-game crew, former NHLer, longtime Islander. And I mean, he just started off, they introduced him and he goes, "You like that, right, Clutter?" And it was just like so refreshing. Like, I just love personalities like that. And that's what I really appreciate about the TNT crew. They're bringing out these kids' personalities. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is all about. I mean, hockey personalities. I mean, you're in the room all the time. It's unlike any other sport. I mean, these guys can, talk, and some of the best chirpers in sports. And so, like, you're around it all the time, and I love it when they bring it in front of the TV in a respectful way. But he's just gaining a lot of fans, and what a pick by the Isles. That's tremendous. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. This is one of those Spits and Suds games. I say, like, hey, listen, it's not an original six. It's not a team that you're going to be like, oh my God, you might tell your buddy and it's like, why would I go see the Islanders? This is a team you want to go see. This is a very interesting team this year. Okay. Starsthoughts.com. Before we let you go, D Magazine, any pieces coming out, any previews?
One last thing about the Islanders game I should have mentioned. If fans are on the fence about going to that game, I believe that's the night the Stars are going to be honoring Daryl Ray for his induction.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
For his reception of the Foster Hewitt Award from the Hockey Hall of Fame. So that's another reason to go to the Islanders game tomorrow night if you're or Tuesday night whenever you're listening to this. If you're not, I think that's going to be just knowing the Stars and knowing how, it's really cool that they got a weekend to celebrate Ralph Strangis with him being in town and everything he's meant to fans who watch the game. And now getting to celebrate Daryl Ray and his recognition for his contributions and what he's meant to fans who watch and listen to the game. It's a pretty cool thing, I think, because for so many fans, right, that's the conduit. I mean, you're in radio, Gavin. You know more than I do how important it is to be that conduit and what that means to people who are listening. So I think that's going to be a really, really special night, and it'll be neat to see how the Stars honor Razor tomorrow night. Yeah,
they're so creative. That's why they win awards as far as the in-game presentation.
Very true.
Awesome. Okay. Starsthoughts.com. You're always putting out good pieces. Appreciate all that you do. I told people the other day, it's a great holiday gift for the Stars fan in your life to subscribe to starsthoughts.com because, you're giving someone essentially, months of content and continuous content. Your writing style is personality driven as well as factually driven. And it's wonderful. I will fully admit, I wait for the Robert Tiffin game recap to come out before I hit record and record Spits and Suds post games, man. So kudos to you, buddy.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone who's been supportive of me. I mean, I couldn't go on trips like that and do all these things if people didn't want to hear and read those things. And one of my actual favorite things about people who end up signing and becoming paid subscribers is like some of the chats and stuff that we'll have just inside, whether it's during a game or before or on an off day or something, or even little travel notes or something. I've had multiple people reach out to me, like day one supporters who reached out and told me, hey, you got to check out this. It's called St. Joseph's Oratory in Montreal, up on the mountain, right? Montreal, it's named because it's a mountain. There's a mountain there. So I went up there on Friday after the game before we left Montreal, and it started snowing really heavily. You go up there. It's this giant, I think they call it a minor basilica, and you can go inside. It's incredible. Everything there just is. And then you are overlooking the city of Montreal with snow falling pretty heavily. It's something I'll remember for quite a while. So I wouldn't have thought to do that if someone hadn't sent me that recommendation. So I just love the community that gets created, that's been created by that, and especially the community of being on stuff like this with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if your brother can't make it in the future, let me know.
Oh, you know it. I
am in. Absolutely. A road trip with Robert Tiffin. I mean, that would be unbelievable. We could do the podcast in the car.
It might be better for that matter, because I'll have to focus on driving and you won't have to listen to me talk as much.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much for the breaking information on the Stars and everything else. You're a beast. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Gavin.
All right. That's the greatness of Robert Tiffin. Thanks to Robert. Thanks to producer Gregory Finley for putting on this program, and thanks to the On-Time experts for making it happen. Of course, we'll have another podcast soon, but until then, we truly appreciate you guys listening as much as you do. Remember, spread the word about Spits and Suds. Always appreciate it. Until our next podcast, have a great day, everyone.